Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. My name is Katana Malinowski, and I am the host of Transformational Art with Katana, making the unmanageable manageable. Welcome. Today, I have with me my beautiful friend, Barbara Ulmer. She is a triple language master supporting busy executives with transitions. Welcome, Barbara.
Hello, Katana. It's such a pleasure to be here on your show.
Thank you. Well, today I would like to have my listeners get to know more about you. Who is Barbara Ulmer as a person?
Barbara Ulmer, as a person, is very creative and a dreamer. I always have playful ideas, and I come from a background that is interesting because my parents met in America, in San Francisco, but my mom is from Germany, my father is from Nigeria. So I'm like the intercultural child, and I was always very curious about different cultures and languages and travel. And I think this is why I was always finding ways to communicate, in different languages to honor my heritage.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. I am originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was military when I was born. And so I completely resonate with what you were talking about, having people from different parts of the world and meeting up. And that's just so beautiful. What are some things that make you happy?
What makes me happy is when I can put smiles on other people's faces. That makes me super happy because it radiates around you and makes you happy. Gentle people, kind people, peaceful people, considerate people. All this makes me happy, and then engage with them and do some magic.
Wow. I like to do that too. I even did an experiment once where in the hometown I was living in at the time, I actually started a smiling at people thing. I just, if somebody looked over at me, I'd smile and wave. And
That's
sometimes
amazing.
they would look at me in amazement, like, why are you smiling at me? you know, and
Love that.
then it started to catch on. And I
Ah,
kept doing it because in the environment I was in, I noticed that most people were frowning all the time. So that's the backstory on that.
ah.
And I noticed that it started to have an effect on me
Mhm.
because I like to smile. I like to make people smile. So like you, and I chose to see if I could make people smile. And it worked for a long time. And you know,
Amazing.
then you start getting busy with other things and that drops off. And funny enough, it dropped off when I did. Or maybe I just
Oh,
noticed it more.
okay.
It was an
That
interesting
shows something.
experiment.
That's so
So
interesting. But I mean, how in sunny California everybody is happy, no? Why are they frowning over there? San
actually,
Francisco.
it was actually Reno, Nevada.
Oh, okay. You moved then later on. Ah, okay.
Yes. I actually moved from California with my first husband and my
Mhm.
children when they were young. We
Ah,
left California and moved to Wells, Nevada. Then we
mhm.
moved to Roseburg, Oregon. Then
Uh-huh.
we moved to Pryor, Oklahoma, moved around to a couple of locations within that same area. And then we moved back to Reno, Nevada. And that was so that I could get my bachelor's degree at the University of Nevada, Reno.
That's amazing, but that's a lot of house packing up and going, going, going. It sounds like the expat life that I'm living, like move your whole household and be very flexible. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And then I got remarried after I had been divorced, and now
Uh-huh.
I'm living in Paris, Tennessee. So I've moved again.
Again.
And I know those adventures are not over. It's just in me now. I really like to go different places. And my granddaughters are in Reno, Nevada. So I know I want to be back near
Yeah.
them to experience their youth while they still haven't.
That's so beautiful. I had no idea you already had grandkids. That's so beautiful. How old are the babies?
Thank you. They are 6 and 7.
Beautiful. Nice. This is
And
great.
I have a 16-year-old grandson too, as well.
You do. Wow. This is utterly amazing. And your husband is a traveler like you. You just take him with you.
Yes, he says that he can be good anywhere he puts his pillow. Yes.
That's perfect. That's a match made in heaven. That is so important, right? That those
Yes.
things match. This is beautiful. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
On the flip side of the coin, what is it that makes you sad and angry?
Injustice. I think nothing makes me more unhappy than injustice. And more than unhappy, really angry, when you know it is just not fair, it is just wrong, and it's happening anyways. And that gives me a strong sense of I need to be active, I need to do something to make it better, because I can't accept it. I can't just leave it this way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also feel that injustice is a major issue that needs to be addressed and dealt with regularly. And I even pursued and got my master's degree in legal studies, went
Amazing.
on to law school for a little bit because of that passion to help people. And really, that's at the basis of what both you and I do. We're here to help people, to transition them and help them transform from where they're at to where they want to be.
Exactly.
And it's really the different injustices. There's so many right now
Yes.
because our governments, not one, not there, it's not just a single issue. This is a global issue. All of our governments have done a really good job at splintering us and labeling us and putting us into individual little categories, because the more they keep us separated, the more control they have, and the more that they can kind of do what they're doing, and we're not really paying attention because we're so fractured, and we are at disease with ourselves, amongst ourselves. So I'm completely on the same page. And for me, housing and food are the two biggest issues, followed by healthcare,
Yes.
because I myself need the healthcare. But of course, without housing and food, the healthcare won't support you.
No, exactly. Especially during the pandemic, that was a huge problem, right? Because I mean, um, those places that are initiated to help people, for example, if they are homeless, are at the same token super dangerous because they are naturally always overcrowded.
Yes. And I would imagine that during this period of time during COVID, what you do, which I would love for you to speak more about, I can imagine that maybe your work has picked up.
Yes, absolutely. It really has because everybody moved to the computer, which made the world so much smaller, which in essence I also do through languages because I teach German, French, and English. I had the opportunity to study in France and to teach in Oxford, but also other countries and cities in Germany, in Frankfurt, and in America, in different cities. And so the need and the awareness to open up globally and do that through language and cultural training became much bigger. But then, specifically regarding the COVID situation, I designed a brand new program, an immersion program for young kids that is totally playful to focus on another huge problem, which is spousal abuse, and it
Mm.
became so much bigger during the pandemic, and it is already overseen. The numbers are overseen, and it became so much bigger. So I designed it because the focus are always the moms or dads, but not really the kids, but they suffer in silence. And if they are just
Yes.
babysitted, like I say, you are here and we keep you busy, but there's nothing that really inspires them and gives them hope, then there's a big hole in them. And that's why I designed this. And since it's a playful approach, they can use toys to communicate because they experience trauma. And so sometimes they're really terribly scared and wounded inside out. And so then they can express themselves through the dolls or other toys that they have, which goes very well with play therapy. And I do it in a different language, which puts another level on top of it. Now it's not just play therapy, but play therapy through language, which opens a new door to them.
Wow. That's amazing. You made me think of another question, which is related to how the computer has, with COVID, the world has gotten smaller and larger
Mhm.
at the same time. And a lot of people are starting to connect in ways that they hadn't connected before with their friends and their loved ones.
Yes.
Do you find that there's more adults that are looking for your services to reconnect with family members that are in blended families?
Yes, I think they really found this fulfillment because in this situation where often also the main income changes, the way you do business changes, they figured out, and it makes so much sense that they can use this extra time to do something that helps them, to reconnect. And it's something that they never lose again. It's something you take with you, which is very important, I feel, especially in unstable times. You must leave a lot of things behind, but the language you can always take with you, or the languages.
Right, right. And it to me, it's just such an important thing with the growing changes that are coming globally. I think that we're going to be more interconnected, and there's going to be a greater need for understanding more languages than
Yes.
even two. I can recall a time when English and Spanish were more predominant, but I think we're opening into a new phase where there's going to be a need for even more.
Yes, I
Would you
feel the
agree with
same
that?
way. Yes, like already our partners up north in Canada, I feel there has been a global closeness that hasn't been there before, too.
Yes.
And so I think there is also a bigger need. And it is so amazing that we have the opportunity to just venture out globally, in those different time zones and communicate with each other. And I always feel that if I make the effort to learn another language, like in California, Spanish is a no brainer because there's so many Spanish speaking people. And it's important then to make an effort because some come only speaking one language. They are really alienated. And so even if
Mhm.
you just know a few words, that is so consoling, it helps them in the transition.
What do you find to be some of the greatest challenges for children that are learning a new language?
The greatest challenges, that's interesting because usually we always focus on how easy it is when they're little because it comes like another mother tongue. But challenges, I guess, for example, when I look at my German expats that I work a lot with, and the parents love to keep their heritage, their mother tongue, um, present in the children's lives. And then they are here in America, and for example, all the nouns are lower cases, but in Germany they are upper cases. So it is utterly confusing for them. So as a result, I've designed also a game to help them, again, in a playful way to cope with those, because all morning they're in the American school and they are not capitalized, and they come home and have my classes in the afternoon or on the weekend, and it's the other way around. That's utterly confusing for them.
Yes, I could see, excuse me, I could see exactly how that could be confusing. It's confusing for us, and
Yeah.
we're, this is our native language.
Hmm.
So I completely can see how that would be an issue. I know that I know a lot of teachers
Yes.
and a lot of administrators of schools, and they've talked about that gap
Yes.
between parents and the children that
Hmm.
are, so the parents want to contain or maintain speaking their native tongue.
Yes.
The children are struggling to learn English, American English,
Yes.
and oftentimes the children aren't getting the support from the parents on learning English
Yes.
because of that. Do you see that as well?
Yes, I do. That is sometimes really difficult because I have worked with many students where the parents both speak, for example, the language of the country they came from, and then the kids do not even really have the opportunity to practice, because the minute they open the door at home, it's whatever language they came with or languages they came with. If Because we also have many international couples and families now that have like two languages. But imagine now you have two languages, but none is English. And so you can imagine it gets even harder. It is very difficult and confusing. And on the other hand, it is hard for the parents also to help, with school problems, even just with administrative things, like if the school reaches out and the parents don't have a strong English knowledge, it's really hard to handle. That again was a huge thing during the pandemic. The educational gap became huge, because there were the parents that could help or could buy the help, right, that the kids needed, and those who could not. And it is still not even proven in numbers what this really cost, what the consequences really
Yes.
are in the end, because it was a huge thing.
Yes. I wonder if there's some way that we can help the parents transform alongside with their children.
Yes, I think that is a really good concept, that then, because I do it also with my foreign language programs, that parents, for example, when the kid chooses a language, like I have those kids that dance at the Houston Ballet, and so they choose to learn French, and if then the parents do it parallel too, then that's excellent. Like I had the mom who took French before, and she said, yes, I want to do French again too, so they support each other, and that should be the same for English. We
Yeah.
are out here. I take some classes to help you out too and make an effort as my child. And it's more fun because in the end, if you don't practice, you lose it. So it's
Yes.
great. I have many family groups that work together, and it's much more fun because they can always practice with each other.
Oh, that's fantastic. I remember that we had had a previous conversation and we were talking about school bus,
Yes,
and a
exactly.
word that in America we picture, a little yellow school bus or a large yellow school bus,
Yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily conjure the same image for children in other countries.
Exactly. And that was an exciting discovery too when I was teaching in Oxford. And I was teaching German, that even though you know the vocabulary, you still don't see the same picture, because pictures, vocabulary is still culturally influenced. Because in Germany, the school bus looks like a normal bus. In London, in England, the normal bus looks different again, because you have the traditional double deckers in red. So
Yes.
there are many buses and all are called bus. you know so so that is a very interesting thing as well. What do you associate with it? You know?
Yes, because there's so many programs that are attached to using visual
Yes.
cues to help you
Hmm.
learn the
Yes.
languages. And that was that one that we had come up with that
Yes, exactly. Because
could be a
people are
little
not aware of
tricky.
it. But I mean, bus is bus. No bus is many buses, right? When we think about it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. What when you were young,
Yes.
speaking of
Yesterday.
being young, when you were young, what did you want to grow up to be?
When I was young, and that's so interesting because you said that you studied law. I thought about studying law because I felt like I want to make the world a better place. I think that was always instilled in me. This justice is important. We need to help, people that cannot help themselves. And
Mhm.
that's why I initially thought about really studying law. So I could totally relate to you going out there and really doing it. And I really admire it.
Thank you. Yes, I have been noticing a theme with many of us that are out here to help people, that when we have a background of a sense of injustice
Yes.
that we would like to see corrected, that we also have a desire for law. So
Yes.
it's really interesting that regardless of our culture, regardless of our backgrounds, that most of us seem to have this as a commonality. And I really think that's really cool.
I think so too.
um, so what was it that got you on this path that you're on today?
What got me on this path? I think it was always the idea I want to communicate with people and I want to communicate the best I can, the most authentic I can, the most relatable I can. Because I guess if you want to help people, part of it is to be able to communicate, right? Because, like, even if now you study the law, now you still need to find a way to really reach the people somehow. And so I was thinking languages besides my heritage, plus education, because you have a great opportunity to really form young minds. One often underestimates the teacher in itself, and when you hear even very successful people, they often talk about my elementary school teacher did this and that, and I ran with it for life. Sometimes there are really little things. I sometimes meet former students and they tell me things that I have almost forgotten, and they remind me, and that keeps you going. And then when I have the opportunity to do my own business and give even more focus what I want the children and adults to have, really custom based. What do you need? What do you want? How can I help you to reach this goal in a fun way, in a creative way? And then this was a no brainer. And I love every day that I do this.
And that's what it really is about, is finding that combination of what you can do to not only support yourself but support and serve others at the same time. So that's such a wonderful gift to have. um
Which
and
you also do with your art. Like I said, the first time I saw you with this beautiful Monet bridge, I fell in love. I was, oh my God, this is so amazing. The warm colors that match your warmth. And so art is such a good, amazing way to express yourself too.
yes, it is a language.
Mm-hmm.
And having our conversations, I've learned that it would be really wonderful to have the capability to have multiple languages to help people transform their lives through my process. It involves both, you know, free writing and journaling and
Mm-hmm.
sketching and the visual images. And of course, we got back to the awkwardness that can come up,
Exactly,
not
right?
only in the language. but just the visual icons themselves,
Yes, yes,
it's such a complex thing. And,
absolutely.
but it's so exciting at the same time to think, wow,
Yes,
this could be a really big thing that could take off between, working together in that space like that, where you
yes,
have
I'd love
somebody
to.
that could help
Yes,
bring the transition
exactly.
of language in there so that it could support other people, because these traumas
Yes,
and negative triggers,
yes,
which are oftentimes related,
yes,
aren't exclusive to one country or another.
exactly. And that's why we globally have amazing artists that express themselves. And that's what I also love about children. They are so fearless. They just jump into the water and try it, right? Whether it's art or language or whatever, they give it a try. I think the older you get, the more you overthink things sometimes, right?
Oh, yes.
I don't know,
I've been guilty of overthinking. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And so I think this is just like, it's like a meditation on paper, to do art,
Oh,
to express yourself and release things. And so I can very much imagine that this would be an amazing thing to do together, to have like
yes.
really great like projects.
Yes. And I was just thinking about the way that that could help build a global community.
Yes.
The visual art came first. It was our first language.
Yes,
That was how,
exactly.
and history was documented through the visual.
Hmm.
Our experiences of life are often documented through the visual,
Yes.
and the verbal language, the written language, is there to enhance that.
Yes, exactly.
It's such a complementary aspect, and what a beautiful combination those two could be together, if we have multi faceted aspects of that with the different languages. It also made me think of differences in terms of the playfulness you brought up,
Yes,
teaching children and having them be able to express themselves through play.
exactly.
And I personally feel that play is something that we don't necessarily condone
Yeah.
for adults.
Exactly. And it's so needed for adults as well.
What are your thoughts on adults learning a language through play versus traditional structural methods?
Well, I think since it is a vehicle, the language to communicate with each other, all of it is play. All of it is like your own little stage. Like if I teach you a language, even now virtually, you're always on a stage, you're presenting somebody, you're presenting something. Then I love food and cooking, and that's a playful thing too, to play with the food, the ingredients. We can add your colors and things with it and cook, have the words for the preparation of the meal. And that's a wonderful, playful approach. Um, on the global level, we can have PayPal, pen pals. I always make pen pals that can also write with each other. Back then, when I was in school, it was on paper and you had to wait forever for the letter. But now you can email and message
Uh,
anybody, globally. So I would like that as well, for adults as well as for kids, because adults too can just express, this was my day, how was your day? And you venture into a new world, into a new culture. There are many wonderful, playful angles, to teach language and to live language and experience language, taste language.
that is, that's such a wonderful idea. And it leads me back to another part of our previous conversation together about when I was in junior high school, and we would have multicultural days,
Yes.
and we were all encouraged to bring a dish that was related to our heritage, where we were celebrating each other.
Hmm.
And it would be so wonderful to learn a language that way.
Yes, because it's intrinsic then, you see it, you experience it, so it makes sense. It's joyful. I love that. This is so beautiful. And it also shows again the global level that we are appreciating, the level where we're saying we appreciate one another, we lift each other
Yes.
up, you know. Tell
Yes.
me about your culture. What is your dish? How do you make it? How is the specialty of your grandmother? It's amazing.
We get to celebrate our
Yes.
similarities rather
Yes,
than our
exactly.
differences, but our differences
Exactly.
too,
It's beautiful.
because we get to
Absolutely.
share something that's special with us with somebody new, and they get to
Yes.
do the same.
Yeah.
We're building bridges to
Yes,
a, a more inclusive community.
exactly.
And to me, there's nothing bad about that ever.
Ever. Exactly. I mean, you have the glorious bridge behind you, which is very symbolic to what you are doing, right?
Yes,
You are really
yes,
building bridges.
yes.
And you let adults play too. So I think we can do amazing things.
Oh, and I'm looking forward to those opportunities.
Me too.
Now that we're coming a little closer to the end of our time together today,
Yes.
um, would you like to talk a little bit more about what your work is specifically?
Yes, I help people really to learn another language. And it's based on their personal goals because there are so many different goals, like we spoke about the heritage or just the love for a culture or a city or a country, or like my little students who dance at the Houston Ballet because it is something that connects to them. So I offer classes, cultural and language classes for all ages. I have the program for the really tiny ones that's super playful. It's an immersion, so they are really immersed into the language.
Mm.
Just like if they have a nanny who speaks another language, which is excellent because up to 8 years old, you don't even develop an accent yet. So you speak the mother tongue. You speak it
Wow.
like the mother tongue, which is a great opportunity. I have a youth program where I also use languages as encouragement. I think that is also very important because the pressure our teenagers are under is often also underestimated, as
Yes.
they are going into high school and prepping for college. The expectations are so high, and almost too high because it's like kind of how can you expect somebody to always be perfect, right? Like A
Yes.
plus, A plus, A plus. I always wondered what exactly is an A plus? How can I be better than an A, right? An A plus, I'm better than perfect. I'm super, super perfect, if you think about it. But the expectations have become so high that really people have high school degrees where they have 0.75 in essence, if you look at the math,
Yes.
because you have to be so good. You should already take college classes, etc. And I think this is then also a very good way for them to venture out, do something else, something that might not be offered in the school. The parents can reward them and say, well, if you do that a couple of years, you can take a trip to Paris or to Madrid or wherever you go. In my case, obviously, France, the Bretagne, or in Germany, go to Berlin, experience the life, possibly study in another country. Like if you have a certain language level in German, you can go to college for free, which a lot of parents really appreciate as well. So there are great opportunities. And for adults also just to better their situation in business, because I always say if you have a high ticket client and you can speak the language of the client, you show empathy, you make an effort, and that's always a huge plus. I think we consider the other people much more than we have done before. I think that's a beautiful
Yes.
change too that I see.
Yes. I agree. And yes, I do see how this could be a benefit, what you do,
Yes.
to entrepreneurs like myself
Yes.
and to other business leaders, CEOs, because the more that we can communicate globally,
Yes.
the better we can build relationships,
I agree. I
and
mean, yeah.
relationships are everything.
Exactly. Just you and I. We are speaking because I took English classes, and I would really be very sad if I couldn't.
Yes, yes. And
Mm.
I took a little bit of German in high school, as I mentioned.
That's amazing. Also, it's so unique because that's not so usual, right? Than
Right.
like Spanish, which is very known, especially in the California area. So you were
Yes.
very unique in your choice. I love that. So
Thank
what do you remember in German?
Guten Nachen.
Aha. Okay. Gute Nacht. Guten Abend. Yeah. Awesome.
And I think that's kind of where it stopped. But
Aha.
I was 14.
Yeah.
So I had other things on my mind other
Yeah.
than sticking around to
Yeah.
do
Now,
the
yeah,
learning.
I
But
can imagine.
I believe that if I had had an opportunity to learn that language the way that you teach it,
Yes.
I would have immersed myself in it and been all the better for it. And
Yes. Hmm.
I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I
Yeah.
was surrounded by people who used all these languages regularly. It wasn't just
Yes.
English, wasn't just Spanish.
Yes.
We had everything that I can remember.
Yes.
Chinese, Japanese. We had a lot of
Hmm.
Japanese folks around
Yeah.
us.
Uh-huh.
And then as the Silicon Valley began to grow,
Yes.
oh my goodness, the
Became super
diverseness
international.
of languages just exploded.
Yes.
And that's when I realized I started to feel inadequate when it came to language and communication.
Yes.
You gain that awareness real quick. And so it would be so wonderful to have a fun way that
Yes.
adults and children and teenagers, which I'll give a little quick shout out to teenagers,
Yes.
because you're told to grow up, but you're still a child. So you don't get to
Yes.
reap any of the rewards for doing adult things.
That's true.
And
Yes.
at the same time, you are growing up. So
Yes.
you embrace those things. And again, you're not rewarded for either end of that. You're
Exactly.
told to be a child, but then grow up. And it's a very confusing time.
It is.
It's a very difficult time. And
Yes.
I'm so grateful that you're there to help them with at least this one part of their life.
Yes. And because languages are stages, we are always on stages now. That's also, something that is really that you should have in your toolkit now. Like you're brave here with your podcast. At 14, that was probably a scary thing, but the new generation, right? We
Yes.
expect them to just be out there and speak freely. And
Mm.
like you said, that's again very grown up to do.
Yes. Yes. So much to learn and to
Yes,
continue to learn. And I love the more you learn, the less you know.
exactly, right? But we just
Just
keep going,
right. And that's just an encouragement to keep that
Yes,
toolbox open and keep adding tools
exactly.
to it.
Yes.
So now that we are just about done, I have one last question for you.
Yes.
What is one thing you would tell your 18-year-old self?
My 18-year-old self, travel more, have even more fun, go out and just dive in and venture into this adventure that we call life, because the sky is not the limit and there's no day that's better than the day that is happening right now.
That's beautiful. Well, Barbara, how can the people who are listening reach out to you and connect with you?
Well, you can find me under my name, Barbara Ulmer. which is Ulmer. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I also have a web page on LinkedIn. So under my name and under my business BU, my initials, Language and Learning Center, I can be found easily.
Thank you so much for sharing you and your time with me today on the podcast and with the audience. So thank you very much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Katana.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Transformational Art with Katana. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and share the link to this podcast with your family and friends. To connect with me personally, please send an email to transformationalartwithkatana@gmail.com. Have a beautiful day.